obviously coming in new, there's a lot of work to do, so stripped everything back really, and spoke on day one about setting the players two targets really. One, that they know their role, they do their job, and the second one is that they'll get judged on effort. So the whole of pre-season we've just kept going back to those two key principles. We've obviously two games in, two pre-season games in. Overall been pretty pleased with the defensive effort in both games. Both games defensively looked like training. How we've tried to align the kicking strategy, the new kicking strategy to how we want to defend. Obviously Josh Sims coming in as well from a forwards point of view is an excellent technical coach, so working very closely with Josh to try and improve obviously the line out defence, the maul side of things as well, and strategically how do we go about it, how do we marry our philosophy and our principles and see those come to life. So yeah, a lot of pre-season is just based around collision and effort for me. We've really ripped the whole defensive strategy up and started again. New systems, new calls, new training methods, and so far the players have been excellent. Yeah, well we have to see a fairly stark improvement in both areas to be competitive. Obviously last year's results didn't go to plan, but if you look at actually dig down and try and look into some detail around those performances, which I did before I came here, they weren't a million miles away. And I know from coming here with Cardiff last year that the game went to the very last minute. Similar situation in a lot of other home games as well last year. You can be fairly generic and point the finger and say, oh, are we fit enough? Do we fall off a cliff in the last 10 minutes? But I think with Fabio's game model that he has, which is the overarching picture for us, I think we had to do a lot of homework as to the why and how we then go about improving that. I certainly feel as though we've got to the root of the problem. And that's obviously shaped our pre-season. It's going to be a very tough season again, and things will be tough at times, but we will certainly at home, we really need to target our home games, and I think our European campaign is something we can have a crack at, and also it's about time we won a derby as well. Yeah, well, Zebre had a philosophy last year which as a coach it's difficult not to admire, because they wanted to be brave. But with bravery comes responsibility, and I think that's where they fell down. So the average, if I give you a statistic, the average kick meters per game of a team in the top 8 of the URC, so anybody who finished in the top 8, be it any of the South African sides, Irish sides, Scottish team, Glasgow, the average kick meters was 824, whereas Zebre's kick meters was 524. So Zebre were kicking on average 300 meters less per game, which is 3 full lengths of a pitch. So we've had to address that. We kicked over 1,000 meters against Ealing. Now, a lot of people immediately will point the finger and say that kicking is boring, kicking can be negative. It's anything but that. So how we go about our kicking strategy, we're blessed with some very strong kickers in our game, with Tiff and Jero, Montemawi with Ritzy. We have the left foots, which is a blessing of Jesse and Pani, and I come from a club where we had no left footers. So it's probably the biggest area that we've put a focus on is our kicking game, but what that looks like, and setting some very strict parameters around how we come out of our end. So we're clean, we're simple, we're effective. So, and I'd like to think that our kicking game has been a big feature of making us competitive, because Zebre always finish games strong, always score a lot of points in the second half. Their attacking game is something which teams fear, so if we can become more robust without the ball, we can apply pressure through our aerial game, then the pieces of the jigsaw will hopefully come together. Well, again, what I've brought in is that we've got a defensive leadership group. So Fabio has his new captain and his own leadership group, which I liaise with, but then every Monday morning we'll sit down as a group. There's 12 in the group at the minute, which is too big, but the more people who talk about defence at the moment, the better. So I'm keeping it fairly broad, and then we'll narrow it, the group, as the season gets closer. And every Monday morning we'll sit down and we'll review the week. We'll review what went well, what needs to improve. We'll review the key statistical areas from the game, any goals that were set for the week. And even though I own the defence, the players drive it. So the players are now starting to deliver in meetings. We have obviously our online platform where we have a lot of discussions away from training. And I can't praise the players enough. There's obviously an Italian temperament to hit things and to defend. And if we align that with a little bit more know-how and a little bit more strategic knowledge around how to stick in games and stay in the arm wrestle, then I think we'll be competitive. Yeah, well, prior to coaching at Cardiff, I was with Wales 7s for 5 years and 4 years, and Wales 20s for 5 years, so I understand the importance of development. When the opportunity came around from Zebre, obviously I looked at the Italian under-20s closely and seen how competitive they've been. I'd like to think that I can bring a little bit of defensive know-how and steel to how we're going to play the game. Not concede anywhere near as many points or tries as we did last year. But as I said, defence isn't in isolation. It's linked very much to our discipline, our turnover rate, our kicking game. So as a coaching group with Emmy, with Josh, with Fabio and with Aldo, it's just making sure that we are all very much aligned. We have some robust conversations and understand what we want. Our training has changed out of sight in terms of how we train, the intensity levels we bring. I work very closely with Harry and Fra on GPS units to make sure that we're getting the right intensity, our meters per minute, our volume, so that quite simply the training is looking harder than the game. So that if you get the training week right, the game is easy. So we just got a huge focus on getting our training week right. Yeah, I have a very clear philosophy based around the first 3 phases. So we win the game line or we get the ball back. I left Cardiff, a side which had a real identity around the contact area. It was an area which teams feared when they went to play Cardiff because of the amount of jacklers that we had certainly across the back row, the centres, the front row, and that's something that will take some time here. It is a side which will go hard at the contact area, but I am conscious that we have to improve our discipline as well. So I think the first 2 games have been real good performance indicators for me that we're making some good decisions in and around the breakdown. But I want to go hard at the ball. I want teams to have an identity that they fear when they come here to play Zebre, and it's going to take some time. But as I said, I have a very clear philosophy which all the players now understand. I'm sure there'll be 1 or 2 who would prefer something a little bit different, but everybody understands it. We agree that that's the route that we want to go down, and then we just build our principles around that. So keeping it very simple, very clean. The players have been effective. And we just need to, obviously we'll go to Oyonnax next week now, which will be a big test, and we'll just keep linking everything back to our game principles, back to our game model, and stick to the process, and hopefully the outcome will look after itself. Oh, listen, it's going to be tough. I think in every crisis comes an opportunity. I think this was when I wanted a new challenge, because I was happy at Cardiff. I could have stayed there if I'd wished to do so, but we wanted 2 things as a family: 1, an opportunity abroad, and 1, a fresh challenge, and no bigger challenge than this. Zebre conceded 105 tries in the URC last year. I would certainly look to reduce that significantly, but as I said, defence is not in isolation. We need some luck with injuries. I think the club has recruited well. We've got some good foreigners coming in. We've still got Scott Gregory to arrive. We've got the 6 boys coming back from international duty. We've still got Dylan DeLu and Jake Pellegri to add it back into the group. So I think we can just stay very tight-knit. I like the way that the club has structured the pre-season. We've had 2 3-day camps away. We spend a lot of time together off the field. There's a lot of smiles on faces, a lot of laughter in the building, and everybody looks forward to coming to work. So, and for me, that's more than half the battle. So we get ourselves right technically and tactically. There's a lot of players here who've never even won a competitive game for Zebre, and they're probably, some of them are they've been here for 18 months. That's unacceptable. It's an area we have to improve. Losing is a habit, but so's winning. So hopefully we can get on a winning streak pretty early on. 4 of our first 5 games are at home. So on paper the fixture list has been kind to us, but they're very tough fixtures. There's no easy games at all. And if we're honest, probably Team C Zebre is the easy game at the moment. So we need to start changing perceptions, but the reality is it's going to take a bit of time. But if we keep training like we're doing, we will win games.